Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Finance Bunch Presents Girl Talk. I'm your host, Charline, and today we have in our studio Marcia Whitfield. We are so happy to have you in the studio with us today.
Thanks.
How you doing?
I'm great. Thanks.
That's
it's good to be here.
But when I met you and the first time I interviewed you, your business was booming.
I was really busy. Yeah.
Wow.
I had a
and
lot
it was
going on.
A lot of it was organic.
All of it was organic.
Yeah.
From top to bottom. So
wow.
And that's a whole other animal to have, especially because even with climate change, way back when, it's not like you can just go to the store and it's like, oh, there's just always organic asparagus. There isn't in times. There isn't organic things. So that becomes a whole other tricky sort of thing to navigate when you're preparing food.
Yeah. So now, how did you learn how to correctly proportion your plate so that you would have the right proportions on there?
Well, that's actually a little bit of the magic.
Okay.
So that's something that takes a little bit of time, and you can broadly say, a person that is in, between 150 to 190 pounds should eat X, Y, and Z.
Right.
This amount of protein, this amount of carbs, this amount of fats, and simple carbs. But the truth is that every person is this dynamic, unique human being,
right.
And we have these amazing bodies that are doing things, and yet we too actually contribute to that. So, like if you're sitting all day, you probably need a little less calories than somebody
right.
who's really active in that weight range that I mentioned, between 150 and 190 pounds.
Right.
So you have to figure out where people are at, and the only way to really do that is to actually be in touch with people.
Right.
To kind of follow their journey with them.
What is your activity
right.
level? Do
and,
you sit all day? Do you run all day? What do you do?
Right. And then also just kind of checking in with people, like, how are you feeling? Because, I mean, probably the biggest tip that I could give anyone to go on any sort of health or fitness journey is just stay happy.
Right.
Figure out where you're happiest and then start incorporating and make sure you're staying happy, because it's so much easier to lose body fat, for example, when you're happy.
Right.
It's so much easier to recover from illness when you're staying happy. And that's not always the case in a lot of situations. In fact, I think it was like 2 nights ago, I was just reading a bunch of articles, and one was by this very popular trainer, and there was no happy in it. And I just thought, well, gosh, this is such a grind. It's so unhappy. And it's like, I don't want to do that. I want to stay happy, and I want to eat good food, and I want to, be fit.
Have a good time.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the deterrents, because it becomes a job.
Yeah.
Instead of just a way of life, a happy way of life, it becomes this job. And I think sometimes the goal is realistic, but the road to get there is unrealistic. Like,
sure.
You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to eat that bland, cardboardy food for the rest of your life.
Right, and you shouldn't
And
even
you
have
shouldn't
to
have to.
You actually shouldn't have to do that at all.
Right.
To get into your best shape.
Right, and so that's what I think a lot of times would be the case, is that you look at some of the, things that you see out there, and you go,
social media,
eating that, and then social media plays a big part in it, so for you, I know you were into weight training, and
I'm a personal trainer,
personal trainer, so that kind of all goes together.
It does. I mean, I don't understand how you'd want to have a healthy, fit life, but then you just sit around all day. I mean, that's the whole point.
Exactly.
It's like to get up and get out and move around. I mean, you have this body. I mean, no, I can't imagine any of us want anyone to be lifting us or moving us around as we age. We want to stay as vibrant as possible. And so, how do you do that? Well, you're gonna have to walk. You're gonna have to bike. You're gonna have to swim. Yoga. If you're into yoga, I can't stand yoga.
Really?
I know people are like, you can't stand yoga. I can't stand it. It just doesn't work. I don't know. It's just not my thing. But enjoy.
That is funny.
But it's true.
Now, there's something in your bio that I just have to bring up.
Okay.
Because you mentioned that in France you worked at McDonald's?
I did. When I was 18, I went abroad and did I didn't have to go to school, but it was a study abroad program. And so I was lucky enough to be paired up with McDonald's, the hamburger company in France, which was amazing, on the Rue Saint Catherine in Bordeaux. And so I got a lot of education about red wine. Well, they have white wines too, but I drank a lot of red wine. I think a lot more than that. But I did. I worked for McDonald's, and what an interesting experience, because I had never worked for a fast food restaurant in the United States. So to go there and work for a fast food restaurant, and it was very structured, like you would think, because McDonald's is this huge chain, and so across the board, I mean, as far as systems in place, McDonald's is amazing. If you're an entrepreneur, like you should read up about McDonald's and see what they do. I don't know. I was reading something the other day about how franchises aren't really as lucrative as they once were because the buy-in is so expensive. But I mean, I think everybody comes from their own ideas about franchises. I would say don't buy a franchise, just do your own thing, But anyways, but McDonald's has this amazing systems in place, and so it was a great place to go work, especially at 18, and because most of the people were young and I was young, so it allowed me to, really kind of get immersed and like have friends right away and, have fun.
Right. Well, I mean, it was fun. You were in France.
Yeah, I was in France.
Right.
Send me back.
Exactly.
Just for the food.
And then that just struck me as fun, because I was like, McDonald's in France. Yeah. That's interesting, right?
Yeah, of all the things, because most of my friends were nannies. I think I had one friend that worked at the consulate, and I was like, well, that's cool. But that was the thing, like they didn't have any young friends.
Right.
Because they were like with the little kids.
Right.
Or the adults.
Right.
Or real adults, at the consulate. So it was like,
I want to be someplace with the 18-year-olds so I can have fun, right?
Have fun, have a romance.
Exactly.
Or a few of those.
Oh, yeah. You're going to have to tell me about that later. Okay. Now, how do you feel about diets?
I think diets are anything that you're eating at any particular time. And so I know it's got this huge negative connotation to it. And I'm just not giving it that much power. Okay. I'm like, you can have a really great diet where, and that does not mean, let me preface it this way. You can have a really great diet that has nothing to do with the way that you look.
Right.
Right? So I'm not attaching this to anybody's size or shape or anything like that, but you can be eating, a diet rich in fruits and vegetables, lean protein, a little bit of dairy, and you're vibrant, you're feeling good, you're waking up energetic, you're sleeping well. That's to me like a good diet. Right?
Exactly.
Now, if you want to manipulate your body in a specific way, that's something different, and that does come through a specific form of diet. Right? It's just a consumption of calories and food products. So this idea that a diet is, it's like horrible. I understand that people have attached that to it. I just don't feel that way.
Yeah. Well, when you explain it that way, it makes it less offensive.
Yeah. I mean, sure. I guess that's what it is. It's just the way you look at it.
Exactly. Because, like you said, like even with foods, if you're going to eat something, as long as it tastes good. You would want to make the healthier choice as long as if it tastes good, right?
Well, I mean, I always think like sometimes you're just in a mood, and so the healthiest choice might be the chocolate cake because you have maybe your mom or your dad made this specific chocolate cake, or there's just some sort of warm feeling around that. And so I'm not saying eat the whole chocolate cake
or sit and eat chocolate cake every day all day.
But there's just to like separate your emotions all the time from food when that is the one thing that will actually make you feel better, right? And comforted, then go ahead and have it. The challenge is if you do that all the time and you're not actually dealing with things that perhaps are bothering you, plaguing you. Plaguing might be too strong of a word, but just nagging at you somehow. Like if you're using it all the time to mask things, or tamping down your emotions. Okay. And those emotions can be a lot of different things. I don't just mean sadness.
Right.
Or trauma. Sometimes we're elated. Right. How many times have you gotten into a relationship and then you're just having so much fun and you're like, oh my gosh, my pants are tight now. I've been eating out and drinking and everything's romantic and it's fun. It's like the same, so emotions can mean a lot of different things.
Exactly.
It's not just the one thing or not just a negative emotion.
Right. So you talk about emotion a lot in association with food. And so I wanted to put a pin in it right here and let you explain that, because I think that's very, very important, how you associate food with your emotion.
I think that at this particular point in time, because we have a lot of free time, right, to be on social media, and we're always reading about, these articles about how it makes you feel sad if you're on Facebook, or don't go on Instagram for this reason or that reason or whatever. And I think that all of that sort of downtime that we're filling with all this stuff isn't allowing us to be in touch and quiet with ourselves.
Okay.
And so experiencing your emotions is a really good thing, and it's a really healthy thing. It's healthy to cry. It's healthy to laugh. It's healthy to just feel melancholy sometimes. Not all the time, but, to feel feelings of elation, because that's how you know you're alive, by the way. And with that, you also have to understand, like, how your emotions can cause you to lean one way or the other.
Yes.
I know people who get sad, kind of saddish, I guess, or, have stress and they don't eat anything.
Right.
And that's not good for you. You got to eat because you need fuel.
Right.
And then there are other people that I know that will go completely the opposite way and way overdo it, because they're just, tamping down these feelings. Both people aren't dealing with their feelings.
Right.
And so it's really important. Food is wonderful and it's good for you, but we can overdo it. And so I think the baseline is to get back to a good, happy center place.
Absolutely.
Being happy most days, understanding that there are some highs and lows, because that's how you actually know that you have a good life happening.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
If you've got you get a flat for some reason and you're tired, you're like, that sucks, Right. But because if you never get a flat, you never know what that little hiccup
like.
is.
That's right.
Yeah. So I think that, it does go together. And I don't want to give it too much power, but at the same time, I understand that we're all these dynamic emotional beings, and I feel like we're not really embracing that all the time, especially now for some reason.
So now, it would be remiss of me not to ask you some questions about your successful meal prep business, because I asked a few friends, and they are all about, they want to do this as a business. And when they found out you were going to be on the show, I got phone calls right back to back, And so, as a successful person in the meal prep side of things, I have about 4 questions. So let me ask them.
Hope I can answer them.
Oh, absolutely. Do you prep everything at one time, or do you prep one thing at a time?
Well, I think that's a fair question. It kind of depends on the scope of the business.
Okay.
So if you're doing large-scale meal prep for a wide variety of clients, then you're probably going to want to prep things one at a time just to make it easier on yourself. The reason being because if you're saying, let's say you've got 100 clients and 20 of those people don't like mushrooms. Right. It's like, okay, so you got to break that out. So you're going to have to go one dish at a time to really be effective, because you can't get it wrong. If you have an allergy, or you've got it could just be somebody. It could be as simple as a dislike, but if it's an allergy, you have to take that really seriously.
Exactly.
So.
Wow. That in itself makes me say, "Oh, I wouldn't want to have to do meal prep."
Not
That's
a lot to think about.
It's
a lot to think about.
Yes. Yeah. And what are the best containers to use?
Well, I would say BPA free. I've actually been researching some eco-friendly ones, but I don't know how efficient they are as far as reheating and actually keeping like soup, let's say, because things usually tend to have a sauce of some sort. So, but I used a BPA free one, and I loved those. My clients loved them. We all were humped because they weren't recyclable, but at the same time, you still got to get the food out. So.
Exactly. And third question. How do you structure your pricing? Is it like market pricing, or how do you structure pricing?
Well, you have to figure what your food costs are, and then you've got to figure out what your hard costs are, which is packaging, overhead of renting your commercial space, any staff that you're hiring, including advertising, marketing. So that's actually a pretty large calculation you're going to need to do. Right. And then you have to consider food costs actually do change, particularly, I know I've mentioned it already, climate change, but climate change does impact the price of food. Right. So and gas and energy costs. So there's a lot that goes into that. So your costs will have to be pretty aggressive depending on, and don't forget to pay yourself.
Right, and then your costs
like
go
actually,
in there too.
you got to pay yourself.
Right.
But so there's a lot that goes into that. So they'd have to consult with me privately.
Right. Yeah. Because I'm like that's my head's spinning right now. So I'll tell them to
so,
consult with you privately
yeah.
because there's a lot that goes into that. Consult with her privately.
Yeah, consult with me privately.
So now I know that part of your business you've decided that's not your focus right now.
Well, I actually don't do meal delivery. I phased that out a couple of years ago, and I now work specifically as a private chef for a few different families in Los Angeles. And in addition to that, I took what I used to do as my meal prep company, and I took it online so I could teach people, particularly single people, how to meal prep effectively so that you get the body that you want, you get the good food that you want, and you get it in small quantities. Because,
and I love that.
Yeah, one of the things that as often with a lot of recipes that you go, if you Google, chili, they're going to give you like 6 to 8 servings of that. And that's just not really how modern people eat. We just don't want 6 to 8 servings. I always joke and say, yeah, leave the space in your freezer for the vodka.
Really?
I don't want 10 tons of chili in there.
Exactly.
So I want a frozen pizza and some vodka. So I created this particular program called Everything Diet. And so it's a wide variety of foods. It includes lean proteins, lots of plant-based dishes, because I know that's very popular.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong. I love eating plants. And so it's just 2 servings per dish, and there's a video tutorial, so it makes meal prep faster for you if you've never cooked before. I'm really fun in the kitchen. I mean, we move really quickly, and we make a bunch of dishes, and then at the end of it, you're like, wow, I'm all set up for the week, and you can just work week to week. It's $10 a month. It's a really easy subscription.
And it's very entertaining.
Yeah, and it's entertaining. Oh, and you get your own detailed shopping list, so I don't just leave it hanging like, good luck, put all this together. It's like, here's a shopping list, boom, go to the grocery store. I talk about how to shop at the grocery store, especially if you're single. I can't tell you how many times when I'm at Whole Foods and I see people wandering around, I'm like, they're going to waste so much money. Right. They should be following me because I will save you money.
20 pounds of rice, 10 pounds of,
I know, it's
5 pounds of.
Bulk bins, folks, bulk bins. You can get just a scoop of this, you can get 3 dates, it's like amazing.
I like that because it becomes very efficient and it saves you a lot of money.
A lot of money.
Yeah, because if you go into the grocery store, most of the time people are hungry when they go in. Mm-hmm. So they have these elaborate thoughts about what they're going to cook. I'm talking about myself right now. And then I buy all these things and I don't have the time to cook them. And if I do take the time to cook them, I cook too much. And then if I put it in the freezer, it gets freezer burn.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not going to eat it. So, and I feel bad to throw it away. So
it's like, we can remove the guilt.
All the guilt.
All of it. Remove the guilt.
Just make enough for 1 or 2 people.
Money.
Yeah.
And I like it, you can revisit it.
Exactly. And I like the fact that if, let's say, you're having guests over, you can just increase the portions and make it 4 or 6 or 8, but you don't have to do that if you're not serving 8 people.
Right.
Yeah. So I like that. And so you guys, we're going to have all of this information for Marcia at the bottom. You'll be able to check out all of the places you can reach her.
And the one other thing that I actually am launching in 2020, which is reminiscent of meal delivery, although it's not meal delivery, is I'm launching a 5 and 10 day whole food shred and restore program. So it's to shred some body fat in a very short period of time. But also it encompasses the restore part of it, to bring back some balance. Because really what it is, when we're carrying a lot of extra body fat, or really any extra anything, is that we're just out of balance. And so this is a plan, and the reason I did it specifically with food, there are some juices that I've been able to work with a company called Kathy's Kitchen LA, which I love. I love Kathy. She looks like she should own a juice company because she just glows like little sunbeams come out of her. And it's like, oh wow, you do own a juice company, of course. But she's specifically designed a few things for me that are very medicinal in nature for this plan. But I really wanted to keep it to food because I want to show people and teach people and retrain people that you don't have to eat as much as you're eating. You can have really delicious food, but you don't have to have as much of it. And it's not some you're not starving on this, it gives you an idea of going forward what you can and should be eating.
Right.
And it doesn't mean you have to stick rigidly to this for it to keep working. It's like, no, let's just get you back to a place of normalcy around food, because food is very exciting, and particularly in our culture.
Well, and
it's
I know
exciting.
you've said this before, like high density foods that are high density and low in calorie.
Yeah.
And that stuck in my mind. So maybe you want to explain that a little bit. What does that mean, high density, low calorie?
So, for example, if you take your like 200 calorie, I'm just looking around thinking there might be one around, a 200 calorie pack of something. You'll look at that, and let's say it's a pack of 200 calorie nuts. So that's going to be a really great option. Now you can also get a 200 calories of Oreos. And there's not a lot of fiber or protein, but it tastes good, and it's 200 calories. Those nuts at 200 calories are going to, I don't want to say bursting because that sounds dangerous in your stomach, but they're really going to take up because it's fiber, fat, and protein, right? So that is the difference in those two items. So the nuts is by far the best choice. Emotionally, the Oreos might seem great, but they're going to leave you depleted and just craving more food, because it's not really going to satisfy and quench, your bout of hunger.
Wow. Yeah. So now, when a person decides do you think a person should eat 3 meals a day? That was another question I got.
I think a person should eat when they're hungry, and I think a person should learn to recognize when they're hungry and not when they're thirsty, because there's a difference.
That's a good point.
Right?
Yeah.
I think a person should. Because what that question is asking for an absolute. And there's no single person that this answer is going to be right for. But you know who it's right for to eat breakfast? Kids. Because they're going to school into a learning environment. So they need some fuel. Most adults can probably go to work and not have breakfast. And people are like, what? That's the best meal of the day. That's the most important. How dare you say that?
How dare you say that?
Yeah. So
I'm not a breakfast person, so I don't care.
Well, but I mean, there's these things come out into the culture, where someone says it, Dr. Oz repeats it, and then it's like everybody is just like, breakfast is the most important meal a day, and some people are not hungry at all. At all. It's like, why are you eating? You're not hungry. Why don't you wait until like 10:30, 11?
And when you are hungry,
and then start your day of eating. That's when you break the fast, which is breakfast. Break the fast, from overnight. So I would love to give some sort of absolute to that answer, and I will just say, I don't know if you should eat 3 meals a day. I don't know what your schedule is like. What if you work 3 jobs? Yeah, it's just not a requirement for good health. And so
that's a good one. Now we have a few minutes left.
Okay.
And you've been an entrepreneur
for a long time. Yeah.
And
an aspiring entrepreneur for a long time.
Right, but a successful entrepreneur for a very long time.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
Would you ever work for another company? Like, would you ever go in and work for a company?
Well, I mean, I kind of do that a little bit now as a private chef.
But you're a private chef and it's your own business,
though,
right?
But I'm still having to be somewhere for someone else. So
that's true. That's true.
So
a little bit.
Yeah.
But within your own control, though.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure you sit down with your clients and you choose them, they choose you, and it's a happy.
I think the thing is, like, working for other people, the reason I became an entrepreneur, or what kept driving me towards being entrepreneurial, is because I didn't like the way things were being done.
Okay.
And so you're always looking for that. I know, like, we want to say, like, oh, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. And I think that's nonsense. Work is still work. I think if you can be happy in doing what you're doing, that it mostly doesn't seem like work. But there are days where you just are tired and you got to get up, you got to do billing, you got to go to the grocery store, for someone like me. And I love going to the grocery store, but still, like, sometimes there's just a hassle in the parking lot, and it's like, it's still work. It's still work. But I just happen to actually find a lot of pockets of happiness within it. So
now, my last question. What does Marcia see herself doing over the next 5 years?
Well, Marcia is going to be just as happy, if not more happy, in the next 5 years.
Oh, absolutely.
So I don't want to put any constraints on what I'm going to be doing. I know I'm going to be still cooking.
Yes.
I know I'll still be doing creative things. all I can say for myself personally is that I'm just going to be, my well-being will still be intact in 5 years and beyond, you know. So that's where I'm at with.
I love that answer. I love that answer. Now, for the folks who want to follow you, who want to become, but I want you to tell us, okay, so there's 2 things that you're doing right now. One will start in 2020.
Right.
And one you're actually doing now. And the everything-diet.com, that's happening right now.
You
so
can
you
sign
can
up
subscribe,
now.
sign up.
Yeah.
It's $10 a month.
Right.
And it's
tons of recipes. There's
tons of recipes.
There's 9 weeks of recipes up, and then on week 10 and 11, I give it a little twist for you so that you can figure out who you are, what your situation is with your body, and like what works best for you. And then the 5 and 10 day Whole Food Shred and Restore will be available. Probably we're going to do pre-signups because I'm actually keeping this very limited edition. I'm only going to serve 10 clients a month, the first Monday of each month. Wow. So I'm only going to work with 120 people over the course of 2020. I'm doing this because it is my 50th turn around the sun. This is something that I just wanted to do for fun because I have not seen any good shred programs with food, with actual food on the marketplace. And I just thought, wow, this is the culmination of everything that I've been doing for actually the last like 15 to 20 years. So I just wanted to package it in a really fun way with really delicious food because I'm turning 50. That's it.
Well, I think it's going to be an amazing program.
I'm excited.
And I'm looking forward to it.
Thanks.
And I want to thank you so much for coming on the show.
Of course.
You're
Thanks
always
for having
amazing. I was so excited when you said yes.
Who could say no to you? Seriously. I'm like, you said no to Charline? Why? Stupid.
Well, thank you again.
Okay.
Well, guys, this was the show. Thank you for watching. You'll be able to get all of Marcia's information down below, so check it out. She's down there, and she has her program that you can sign up for $10. Really, you're worth the $10. You really are. Yeah. She also has this new program that if you want to get in, you're going to have to get in early because she's only going to have 120 clients for the entire year. You don't want to miss out. Yeah. So I want to thank you for watching the show. This has been Girl Talk at its best, and we'll see you next week.